So let's move on to toning. Before we do, let's click all of these layers off and show you what you started with and what you have now. We started out with a color image here. We added the black and white layer, which converted the image. Then we did some tonality adjustments using the hue and saturation adjustment layer, and then we made even more changes using this selective color adjustment layer. And you can see how much the selective color, especially, how much of a difference that made, because you actually opened up a lot of shadows and you brought out some medium tones that you didn't have before that were going too dark, while highlighting your whites as well. I'm going to make one more adjustment to that. One thing, let's move on to toning. One thing that I've noticed, and a few photographers that I talked to have noticed about digital black and white, is that a lot of cameras produce rather cold images once you convert them to black and white. You may not notice it at first when you look at it with the naked eye, but if you hold up a print that was a traditional silver print made from in a dark room from a film negative, and you compare that with a digital print that was made, that was captured digitally, edited digitally, and printed digitally, you're going to notice that there's the tone of the digital print, without adding any special tone to it, but the natural tone of it is a little bit cold. It looks, to my eye, it looks a little bit blue. So what I usually do is I add a toning layer. Once I've completed all of my other edits using these layers, I'll add a toning layer just to warm up the image just a little bit. And what you need to do is you need to put this on the top. So you would go up here, the last layer that we worked with was selective color. So this is a little bit different. You're going to go to layer, but instead of new adjustment layer, you just go to new, which is on top, and then layer. And that's going to add just a blank layer on top of the image. Now what you want to do is you want to add a tone. So go over here on the bottom left, you're going to see a color swatch. And I already have a color pre-selected here. I like to use sort of a yellow color. If you don't like the color that's appearing in the main color picker, you can scroll down here and change it to a more orange color, or green, or blue, cyan, magenta, red, anything you want. But we're going to stick with kind of a yellow tone here. That's a nice tone just for warm toning. Okay, so we're going to select that color and click OK. When we go over here to the paint bucket icon right here, if that's not showing, it'll be the gradient tool. So remember that the gradient tool and the paint bucket are together here. So select the paint bucket, and then you're going to go right in the middle of the photo and you're going to click it, and you'll see that the entire image turns a bright yellow. Okay, if you go over here to the layers section, you'll see a drop down. Right now it's set to normal. If you click that, you're going to get all sorts of options for this layer. What we want to do is change it to overlay. Okay, so now you can see that you can see the image, but it still retains that bright yellow tone. What I usually do is I only like to have a slight amount of tone when I'm warm toning. So what you can do to reduce the tonality is go to the opacity, and you click on the drop-down arrow, and you get this slider here that allows you to adjust the opacity. Typically what I do if I'm just toning just for warmth is I will add somewhere between 5% and 20%. Typically I go at around 7 to 9%. But this is something that you really should just eyeball. Every photo might be different, even if you're working on a whole series of photos and you want everything to match. Every photo and its tonality and its exposure are going to be very unique. So you need to make that adjustment strictly by what looks good to you. I'm going to leave that at 7%. Okay, so we have this layer, and when you look at it now, if you didn't know it was toned, you probably would never guess that it's been toned, because it just looks like a black and white print or image. Let me show you the difference, though. Although it looks very subtle, let's click it on and off and see what happens. See, now you can see the difference between the coldness of the original digital black and white conversion versus the warm toning. Especially with warm toning, a lot of times you'll need to go back and you'll need to sort of tweak your settings again, because besides just warming, it seems to at least create the illusion of bringing things out of the shadows a little bit more, and maybe brightening up the whites a little bit more. So I'm going to go back to the selective color here and make just a few little minor changes just to accommodate that the new warm tone adjustment layer. Now add a little more blacks to my whites to bring those down just a little bit, because I want a richer tone in these mid-tones here. And then with the neutrals, that was a mistake. But with the neutrals, I'm going to bring in just a little more black there. Okay, so now you can look at the image and you have a nice range of tonalities. You have blacks, you have whites, you have every gray tone in between. And it makes for a very satisfying black and white image. If you wanted to do, this is a warm tone. If you wanted to do something a little bit different, if you want to stylize a photo, make it a little more trendy with something you've seen in a magazine or something like that, you can also use the same technique to add just a color layer, to add a color cast to it. So I'm going to leave this yellow layer here, but I'm going to deactivate it so that it's not affecting the photo. And I'll show you what we can do with other colors. Let's go here, blue. Let's say we actually want to make it a cold tone photo. We'll go over here to overlay, change that, and bring our opacity down. So see, you can make a very stylized image. Or let's say we want to do something with magenta. We can change that to magenta. Add a lot of magenta. We'll just go just a little bit. Or let's say red. Sometimes red can also be used as a warming tone. And scroll that down just a little. Even let me show you how much of a difference this makes. That's only 3% toning, but look, you can actually see if you click it on and off, That's off, and that's on. You can actually see the tone and see how much of a difference that it makes. I'm going to delete the red layer here and go back to our warm tone, which is much more traditional. Also, with a warm tone, if you wanted a sepia look, you could just bring this up a little bit. And with this image, about 18% is all you need to do to make it have it a sepia look. So this layer comes in handy in a lot of different ways. Let me go back now. I'm going to save this as our working image. I'm going to show you one other way, just in case you have an older version of Photoshop and you don't have the black and white conversion adjustment layer. Let me show you another way that you can convert to black and white. Second. Go back to our original here. Okay, here's our original color. You have a couple of options actually, other than using the black and white conversion layer. In some of the older versions of Photoshop, maybe Photoshop CS3, I believe the black and white conversion layer just came in CS5. Maybe it was CS4. But if you have some CS2, CS3, you can use this method. You can go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and then go to Channel Mixer. Okay. The only thing you need to do here with the Channel Mixer is you're going to see this little selection for monochrome. All you have to do is tick that box, and your photo becomes black and white. And then from there, it's basically exactly the same kind of conversion that you started with the black and white conversion layer. The black and white conversion layer, if you have it with your version of Photoshop, is actually a little better because it tends to preserve the tones a little better. So your initial conversion actually comes out with a little wider range of tonality. So you can use the channel mixer. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to show you one other way that is really the most basic way to change to black and white. But again, it's not always the best. You can go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and then go to Hue Saturation. And then just desaturate it. The middle slider here is for saturation. So basically all you're doing is taking all the color out. The problem with using this method is that you're not preserving the tones quite as well, and you could run into some limitations in some of the other steps that we just went over. But it's still, if you have an older version of Photoshop, this is a perfectly acceptable way to work on your image. We close out of that and go back to what we were working on before. Okay, so here's our final image. Let me go take it back to where we decided we wanted before we decided we wanted it sepia. So we had it about 6 or 7%. I'll run through everything that we just did. We started out with our background layer, and then we added the black and white conversion layer, which made the initial conversion. Then we did some tonality tweaks with the hue and saturation layer. This brought in a lot of richness here and the tones here. You also notice that in these other mid-tone areas. It just really sort of brought in a much greater range of tonality, which also tends to give an image more three-dimensionality and more depth. You'll notice that let me click this layer off. Before, it doesn't have quite as much three-dimensionality. Once you add those tones, you're bringing out more shadows. You're just bringing out more and more tones, which enhances the photo overall. And we added the selective color, which was just a further tweak of whites, grays, and blacks, setting our maximum white and our maximum black. And then the last thing we did is we added the toning layer. Okay, so that's what we have. If you have any questions now, I can take those.